Hey everybody, we're back. Little technical difficulty I had. I was for as some of you guys were just watching a few minutes ago. I was having trouble full screen the slideshow, and I don't know what it was, but I actually had to really do some searching to figure out if there was a way I could really change this switch the screen so I could actually have this full screen on my on the show. So let me just give a I truly apologize for this whole inconvenience. I think we got it officially now. Um, I'm just going to test things out one final time because this time I actually have the slideshow in motion. So let me just share this, and we're going to try this again. And for those that are just tuning in for the first time, like I said, it's definitely good to be back. And the place I'm going to be discussing about tonight, it's going to be probably a place only us horror film fans will be familiar with. So here it is. Let me make sure this is working. Is it working this time? We got it. Yeah, we got it. All right, we got it. All right then. So now, even though we kind of got to a late start, now let's really begin. So before we actually get to the location, I want to talk a little bit about if you guys aren't familiar with this location, let's talk a little bit about, especially those who are into a lot of the horror genre, especially the slasher and splatter genre. Let's go back to see how it all started in the very beginning. Some of you guys feel like you guys are very familiar with the history of the how all the slasher and splatter genre began, but there might be some stuff that might surprise you. So, for those that have always wondered, when did this truly all begin? Thank you, Kelly. What's up, Kelly? Good to see you. Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate it. So, let's start from the beginning. Now, when you talk about gore and blood and blood splatter on film, the first appearance of gore, the realistic mutilation of the human body in cinema, can be traced to D.W.'s movie Intolerance in 19. Oh, wait a minute. That doesn't. All right. You know what? Forget it. I'm not going to fix anything else. In 1960, yeah, it can be traced to D.W. Griffith's Intolerance in 1916, which features numerous Guignol-esque touches, including two on-screen decapitations and a scene in which a spear is slowly driven through a soldier's naked abdomen as blood wells from the wound. Several years later, in 1929, Un Chien Andalou, which is in English an Andalusian Dog, which was a short French silent film which showed a woman's eye being cut with a razor, was considered another early example of on-screen gore. Now, several of Griffith's subsequent films and those of his contemporary in the late 1950s. Oh, wait a minute, something's mixed up. It doesn't matter. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, the public was reintroduced to splatter themes and motives by groundbreaking films such as, of course, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho and the output of Hammer Film Productions, an artistic outgrowth of the English Grand Guignol style, such as The Curse of Frankenstein and Horror of Dracula. Now, believe it or not, this next film that I'm actually going to demonstrate, especially for those who haven't seen it or haven't seen it in a while, this might actually surprise you because I saw this not too long ago. And, well, additionally, one of the first movies to include the elements of splatter in color films was in the 1958 horror film The Fly, starring Vincent Price, if you guys remember right at the beginning. And, of course, I'm sure you guys remember near the that compressor scene or whatever the hell that thing was. Then a year later, in 1959, Horrors of the Black Museum, which was a British horror film that also was originally supposed to have Vincent Price in it, but was later replaced with Michael Gough, was said to be the real first movie considered to be a splatter film. But perhaps the most explicitly violent film of this era was Nobuo Nakagawa's Jigoku, which was released in 1960, which included numerous scenes of flaying and dismemberment in its depiction of the Buddhist netherworld Naraka. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm sorry if I'm going a little bit fast. Again, it's just I'm a little bit left behind, and I'm just trying to keep up with the time because unfortunately now I don't have as much time as I was hoping to have. That was now when splatter itself act like when we started seeing a lot more of this on-screen gore, like we would now see in a lot of movies today. What the real beginning of it, however, was that splatter came into its own as a distinct subgenre of horror, as I said, in the early 1960s, with the films of Herschell Gordon Lewis in the United States. Eager to maintain a profitable niche, Lewis turned to something that mainstream cinema still rarely featured at the time: scenes of visceral, explicit gore. In 1963, he directed Blood Feast, which this one itself, for those who are more familiar with it, is widely considered the first splatter film. In the 15 years following its release, Blood Feast took in an estimated $7 million. It was made for an estimated $24,500. Blood Feast was followed by two more gore films by Herschell Gordon Lewis, and those films were 2000 Maniacs in 1964 and Color Me Blood Red in 1965. Lewis would continue making several splatter films throughout the 1960s and early 1970s, including A Taste of Blood and The Gruesome Twosome, both released in 1967, The Wizard of Gore in 1970, and The Gore Girls in 1972, which I have to admit, with the exception of maybe the first three, the acting is terrible. Pretty much a lot of it's not good, but they have some of the most amazing gory effects from that era that you wouldn't have never expected back in those days that they would ever take that into consideration with movies like that. Of course, just like anything else, soon other filmmakers decided to give it a try as well. In 1968, The Ghastly Ones, directed by Andy Milligan, was released and is considered one of the earliest films to have slasher elements. Of course, let's not forget this. Also in 1968 came the release of Night of the Living Dead, directed by George A. Romero, which has since not only become a classic, but this was the film alongside Dawn of the Dead, released 10 years later, to coin the term splatter film. I didn't mean to have this effect history appearing like that every single time. Now, the 1970s really began to see an increase in the genre. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to really put the posters up for what's going to be coming up next. This was kind of a last-minute addition that I had to add. So in 1970, I Drink Your Blood, which is almost a ripoff of Night of the Living Dead, was released. It displayed a huge amount of gore. But it was with two movies in particular that were not only were controversial films of the time, but served as another important chapter in the slasher and splatter genre. Twitch of the Death Nerve, directed by Mario Bava, released in 1971, and unfortunately, as much as I hate to say it, The Last House on the Left, released directed by Wes Craven, and released in 1972. With these early examples, they have since created not only just these films, but as in all of these examples, they have since created what is considered the modern day slasher and splatter films. You know what? Actually, I'm sorry. I see you're on, Josh. I made a mistake. I did not mean to have Almost On. That was a mistype. It was supposed to be a ripoff. I'm glad you actually noticed that. Thank you. Okay. Now, So I've basically now have exampled these, I've now explained these early examples of how these, how we got a lot of these films. But here's the thing, and this is now the location we're going to be talking about. Before any of these movies were ever made, we actually have to kind of look way further back, even before movies really began. And we're talking all the way back to the days of the theater, if you will. So, Josh. So, before any of these movies were made, the location I'm gonna be talking to you guys about tonight is what's known as, I don't know if you guys have heard it, but if not, it's the first time, it is known as the Grand Guignol Theater, located in Paris, France. This is one of the actual photographs. There's only a handful of photographs. I mean, in fact, the majority of what I'm going to be presenting in the slideshow is most of the photographs I was able to find of the Grand Guignol. There were a few others that I was hoping to try to get copies of, but unfortunately I was unable to. But I got a majority of them. So let's begin with the Grand Guignol, the birthplace of the modern day splatter and slasher film. So apparently, there is a legend about Paris's gruesome Theatre du Grand Guignol, which testifies to the squeamish, macabre nature of its horror plays and bloody special effects. The Grand Guignol was where queasy realism met gaudy melodrama and was one of the most memorable and popular at its time. The Grand Guignol was a theatric institution that put on a variety of short, provocative plays, two vicious, brutal horror pageants involving bloody maiming and murder, and then two extremely silly comic shows. The two formats worked in tandem, winding the audience up and then wringing them out. But the Grand Guignol is really only remembered for its horror component, disguising blood. I think it's supposed to be disgusting, bloody, and nearly unrelenting violence. Le Théâtre du Grand Guignol, or the theater, or in English, the Theater of the Big Puppet, was founded in 1894 and bought and opened in 1897 by the Théâtre Libre associate, French playwright, and chien de commissary. I'm sorry if I'm saying this wrong. I don't really speak French. Oscar Matinier. Oh my God, I'm terrible with names. Who planned it as a space for naturalist performance in Pigalle. I guess that's how a disreputable district near Montmartre, alongside the Moulin Rouge. Man, with 290 seat threats and stage in the stage was 7 by 7 meters. The venue was the smallest in Paris, France. The theater owed its name to Guignol, which means literally, like I said, the big puppet show. Took its name from the popular traditional French Lyonnaise puppet character, whose original incarnation was as an outspoken social commentator, a spokesperson for the Canuts or silk workers of Lyon, joining political commentary with the style of Punch and Judy. Over a span of 65 years, the Grand Guignol produced thousands of one-act plays, infamous for their violent and erotic works of horror. When Theatre du Grand Guignol did open, it did not deviate from many theatrical precedents established by its ancestor. Oscar Matinier was the Grand Guignol's founder and original director. Under his direction, the theater produced plays about a class of people who were not only considered appropriate subjects in other venues, prostitutes, criminals, street urchins, and others at the lower end of Paris's social echelon. Andre Antoine was the founder of the Theatre Libre and a collaborator of Metenier. His theater gave him a basic model to use for the Grand Guignol Theater. Despite its enthusiasm for horror, the Théâtre du Grand Guignol did not start as a venue for that kind of entertainment. This does not mean that the plays Metenier had chosen for production at his new theater were not considered shocking or sensationalistic. Before the Grand Guignol, he produced and wrote plays in this vein for the Théâtre Libre, experimenting with creative decisions intended to both astonish audiences and scathingly criticize the system. His play, La Casserole, which Stool Pigeon, performed at the Théâtre Libre in 1889, was a violent story of betrayal and murder among prostitutes and pimps at a cheap dance hall. The audience was enormous, intrigued by showman Andre's warning that viewers with weak constitutions should leave before La Casserole began. The show was a commercial success. But Metenier had found success turning popular naturalism into shocking spectacle a decade before the Théâtre de Grand Guignol opened its doors. Opening the night of April 13th, 1897, the theater played 8 short works. During its first couple of years, it began as a theater of realism, mainly showing short one-act slice-of-life plays about ordinary parson. My God, I should have looked at some of these names first. Zach's son. Yes, thank you, Zach. I appreciate it. Again, I apologize. I'm running a little bit late because, again, I was having some technical issues with the slideshow. During its first couple of years, it began as a theater of realism, mainly showing short one-act slice-of-life plays about ordinary Parisians. I think that's how you say it. I hope. And expressing a more naturalistic theme in each of its plays. Early Guignol puppet shows were also frequently censored by Napoleon III's police force. Naturalism had, at the time of the Théâtre de Grand Guignol's establishment, ceased to be a peripheral intellectual and artistic movement, becoming instead a full-fledged fad. Writes Gerald of this transformation, many of its motives and techniques started to filter down into the popular arts and general consciousness. Oops, typed the wrong one. By the early 1890s, themes of low life achieved wide popularity in the graphic arts of poster and lithograph, as well as in the fusion of music and poetry and song. When Metenier operated the Théâtre de Grand Guignol, he produced new works in the sensationally naturalist vein, as well as replaying popular classics from the Théâtre Libre. But the show that really got audiences' tongues wagging was an adaptation of a Maupassant short story. One of the Grand Guignol's first plays, Metenier's I can't even say that one. Based on the novel, a story of daily life in I don't know if I should say that. Set during the Franco-Prussian War in Libre, where a French prostitute kills a German officer and joins her sister as a prostitute to ensure the financial well-being of her parents, which was temporarily shut down by police censors. Presented the first prostitute on stage. His subsequent play, Louis, I'm not going to say that word, and united, I'll say, a prostitute and a criminal in the enclosed space of a hotel room. In addition, a former police secretary before his career as a writer and theater in Tenure was more interested in I'm sorry, I'm just rushing a little bit, guys. Again, with the issues that you sometimes have, you have with these shows, it kind of messes things up. So, emphasizing what what he had witnessed on the job, the plight of the working classes, and the real struggles of Parisian lowlife. He kept detailed accounts of all the horrible things he would witness throughout the streets of Paris. He represented this gritty suffering as vividly as possible on stage, often to the denunciation of the critics. This led himself to being a frequent target of censorship for having the audacity to depict a milieu which had never before appeared on stage. The Theatre Labrie was a private theater and therefore free from censorship. But according to scholars, Daniel Gerald, the Tenure's play La Family, I guess, was forbidden for public performance elsewhere. A follower of naturalism, he believed his own experiences could be used to depict the perfect illusion of reality that naturalism called for. Thus, all the notes he kept, combined with his knack for observing daily Parisian life, eventually served as the basis for some of his earliest works. Tenure was Guignol grown up, or Grandy. The theater to Grand Guignol was an immediate success. Without realizing it, Tenure had laid the first stone of the Grand Guignol. Geez, there's a lot of words here that I don't really know how to say, which was to last for over half a century. Little by little, and almost accidentally, a new genre was born. After serving 2 years as director for the theater, for reasons that are still unknown, Tenure passed on the reins and was succeeded as director by Max Maury, who was unknown in artistic circles but had hands-on experience in the theater, and whose leadership soon led it away from the shadow of the Theatre Labrie towards a new genre entirely, horror. He served as director from 1898 to 1914. Under Morway, although the plots of various plays still demonstrate the exploitation of innocent working class individuals, the Theatre de Grand Guignol grew distant Theatre Labrie, drawing inspiration in terms of performance style from melodrama. Spotting this bloodlust, Maury quickly developed a unique brand for the Grand Guignol and shifted the direction of the theater and sought to exploit a darker side while still incorporating naturalism as a guiding principle. It became the home of grotesquely convincing horror stories, often based on real-life examples of sickening violence, and turned the Theatre du Grand Guignol into the house of horror it would become famous for, and judged by the success of a performance by the number of patrons who passed out from shock. Despite all his directorial success, Maury is perhaps most notable for his discovery of André Delorde, who would become the most important and productive principal playwright and novelist for the theater from 1901 to 1926, at a time when insanity was just beginning to be scientifically studied and individual cases cataloged. The Grand Guignol repertoire explored countless manias and special tastes. He wrote at least 150 plays for the Grand Guignol, such as The Old Woman, The Ultimate Torture, A Crime in the Madhouse, and many more, in which they split influences in writing style between naturalism and melodrama. Due to his need to exploit terror and insanity, Delorde became known as La Prince de la Terror, the Prince of Terror. I don't know if I'm going to really have enough time to. Okay, I'm only going to be able to go on for just a few more minutes, guys, because again, with what I'm the technical issues I had earlier, again, it's left me with relatively limited time. We'll go through two more slideshows and then we'll end it at this point. Wanting to incorporate the study of psychology into his plays, collaborated and acquired the help with experimental psychologist Alfred Binet, the man behind the modern IQ test. Together, they created and expanded the realm of possibility around plays about insanity, one of the theater's favorite and frequently recurring themes. His biggest desire was to awaken the monster that resided in each of his plays' views, such as these effects as an example. With clever staging techniques for realistically suggesting gouged eyeballs, decapitated heads, hangings, face melting, hacked corpses, dismemberment and disembowelment, brain drilling, spurting blood by the bucket load, and plots drawn from newspaper reports of real-life crime and depravity. The Grand Guignol was where quasi-realism had got, I already said something like that. And all this proved much more terrifying and popular than the traditional horror narratives of ghosts or monsters. Under his guidance, the Grand Guignol established a unique style of theater that would become synonymous with its name and would lead to its classification as the theater of horror. Like Metenier, Delord was often a target of censorship, particularly in England, where scheduled touring productions of two of his plays were canceled by the Lord Chamberlain censors. The theater of the time, which delighted in vaudeville and Borgias settings, could not abide the sight of blood or corpses on stage. Camille Coissy, I don't know if that's how you say the last name, served as director from 1914 to 1930. He contributed his expertise in a score of special effects in lighting, sound, and scenery to the theater's distinctive style. Under his direction, staging overtook text. Once he even bought a fully equipped operating room as a pretext for a new play. This right here is someone that is an incredible performer who really played a big role in a lot of these shows that they had. In 1917, he hired the actress Paula Maxa, who soon became known as the Sarah Bernhardt of the Impasse Chapel, bringing all of these stories to life. Paula Maxa was one of the Grand Guignol's best-known lead performers and sometimes considered the great scream queen. Probably, in my opinion, the earliest example of an actress being called a scream queen. Her popularity quickly arose as a result of her ability to connect with each of the roles she played, along with her ability to evoke severe emotions from the audience. From 1917 to the 1930s, she performed most frequently as a victim and was known as the Princess of Terror and the most assassinated woman in the world. According to Schneider, not an inch of her body was spared. During her career at the Grand Guignol, Max's characters were murdered more than 10,000 times in at least 60 different ways and raped at least 3,000 times. She also turned cries for help into cliches. Mel Gordon notes that she cried help 983 times, murderer 1,263 times, and rape 1,804 times. She was subjected to a range of tortures unique in theatrical history. She was shot with a rifle and with a revival, scalped, strangled, disemboweled, raped, guillotined, hanged, quartered, burned, cut apart with surgical tools and lancets, cut into 83 pieces by an invisible Spanish dagger, stung by a scorpion, poisoned with arsenic, devoured by a puma, strangled by a pearl necklace, and whipped. She was also put to sleep by a bouquet of roses, kissed by a leper, and subjected to very unusual metamorphoses, which was described by one theater critic 200 nights in a row. She simply decomposed on stage in front of an audience, which wouldn't have exchanged its seats for all the gold in the Americas. The operation lasted a good 2 minutes, during which the young woman transformed little by little into an abominable corpse. All right, we only got, oh man, this was when things were starting to get a little bit more fun. Damn it. Okay, guys, I actually do have to, unfortunately, I will have to end this early because I just realized that one of the other shows on the network's waiting for me to get off. So, oh my God, I really wish I didn't have these issues because there was a lot more to really talk about. So again, I apologize for the issues I had earlier today. Part 2, yes, there will be a part 2. I'm actually going to hopefully try to have part 2 for the majority of next week. Again, if you guys didn't tune in earlier, I was having some issues trying to share the screen. It wasn't going full screen for some reason, but now I was able to fix this up. Hopefully I'll have my laptop for next week. So we're going to try this again. Yes, I know. Just got to the good part. Good to see you, Greg. All these old, no, this was even before those movies, Josh. It was long before that. So, all right, guys, I'm going to, Rosie, I didn't see you there. Good to see you. All right, anyways, I'm sorry, guys, but I do have to end this early. I'm really upset. I may look like I'm happy, and don't get me wrong, I am, but I'm kind of upset that I have these technical issues. So we'll just pick up from where we left off for next week, or maybe I'll try to, who knows? I mean, if I have to even start over just so people can get an understanding of what this theater is, I'm willing to do it because we always have, a few other viewers who will tune in. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. All right, guys, I'm going to end this now. The other show's waiting for me. So you guys all have a great night, and I'll see you guys next week. Again, I apologize for the inconvenience, but as always, I appreciate your support. Thank you all again. You guys all have a great